We are going to learn how to clean your machine, oil your machine, and you are going to learn how to become the master of tension. First, you should prevent dust from collecting by always covering your machine with either a cloth cover or a hard cover whenever your machine is not in use. Luckily, for regular cleaning, it's super easy and all you need is a lint brush, the one that came with your machine, or something like a paintbrush. The frequency you need to clean and deep clean varies by machine and by how much you use your machine. So go ahead and unplug your machine, remove the thread and the needle. First, let's take this bad boy apart. We need to use the little screwdriver that came with the machine to remove the faceplate by unscrewing this little screw in the back. And now let's remove the needle plate. And now we need to remove the bobbin holder. Now let's do it again on a top-loading bobbin machine. Very, very similar. Now you need to thoroughly dust all of these areas. Gently go as far into the machine as you can, being careful to get all those nooks and crannies. Try to get it as white glove clean as you can because this is a big step in the right direction as far as preventing all those mistakes later down the road. And a dirty machine will lead to thread nests, to messed up stitches. Now, oiling your machine depends on which machine you have and what your instruction manual says that you need to do. Our instruction manual says that we need to oil frequently. It's suggesting that for this machine, we oil pretty much every day if we're going to sew every day. Where there are other machines, more advanced machines, that tell you you never need to oil. But really you kind of do. Let's just go over this one first. We're going to go over the bobbin area and then we'll go up here to the needle plate area. It'll say in your manual where you need to oil. We're taking our sewing machine oil, only using sewing machine oil, never anything else. Put a little bit, couple drops on here, then brush it in there. And then I will just turn my rotary hook system a few times. And that's what's gonna spread the oil out. Now the manual wants us to oil about 5 points underneath the face plate. And we're gonna position these gears so we can get to them easily. It only needs a drop of oil. You really don't need a lot. These bottles will last you forever. And now we're gonna plug in the machine and run it at full speed so we can really work in the oil. The biggest mistake people make with threading the machine is not getting the thread flossed in between the tension discs. The trick to that is to hold the top of your thread as you pull it through the machine. The second thing is bobbin winding. Any tangles or snags or uneven, you see how this is uneven and it has some of those icky snags in there, you're gonna have so many problems. Another problem is people will use the wrong needle or a dull needle. So be sure to change it every 15 hours. Now sometimes I just do a little test. You know, it's like if it feels dull to your finger, then it's definitely time to change it. Also, do not use cheap thread in your sewing machine. You will regret it. So there's a couple ways to tell if your thread is good or not. You can hold your thread up to the light, and if you see many strands poking out in all different directions, that means you have a low quality thread. So this is a nice Gutermann thread, and I'm gonna do the snap test. If I pull it like this, it doesn't break. Right? It's very strong. Now let's take some bargain bin thread and watch what that does. This should never be used in your sewing machine. You can use this stuff for like hand basting, things you know you're gonna rip out, but for the most part, don't put it in your sewing machine, also because it produces too much lint. Now let's talk about every sewist's favorite subject, tension. Now there are a ton of different factors that come into play with tension. Thread weight, stitch length, fabric thickness and weight. What you need to know is what bad tension looks like, what good tension looks like, and how to fix the bad kind. First, we're gonna form your good, perfect stitch. Only the needle thread should be showing on the top, and only the bottom thread should be showing on the bottom. So let's go ahead and reduce the tension to 0 and see what happens. Everything looks fine and dandy on the top, right? Well, we're gonna flip it over and look at this hot mess on the back. Because the needle tension is so loose, the bobbin thread's tension can easily pull the needle thread to the back of the fabric. So this is a really weak seam. That is no good. So in this case, I would have to increase my needle tension. Now let's go ahead and super increase the needle tension and see what happens. You can see that the fabric is somewhat puckering and bunching up together a little bit when compared to the top one. This is because the needle tension is way too tight. But also, if I try to pull this, it's very tense. You find yourself having to work out the puckers, your tension is too tight. You really only need to adjust it a little bit at a time, going from the extremes from 0 to 9. Those are just to demonstrate something to you. Now let's talk about bobbin tension. Both top loading and front loading bobbin cases have tiny screws that control the tension. By turning the screws to the right, you tighten the tension. By turning to the left, you loosen the tension. If you do need to change your needle, make sure that the flat side is facing the back of the machine. There are some machines that have their needles installed differently, so double check your manual. Also, pay special attention that you have inserted the needle as far up as it can go and that the screw is nice and tight. If the needle falls out while sewing, it's because the screw isn't tight enough. Whoosh! That was a lot of information.